proudest day, and the proudest time in the seat of a rally car, because that day and that hour and those minutes, I got the bit between my teeth. You know, I really stood up and was counted and said, this is not getting away. I remember when we pulled on our helmets and Donald says to me, what are we doing? I said, we're going for gold, Barrett. That's all was said. I can still picture that run. That was just the best run ever.
Welcome along to Krunching Gears, the Rally podcast. Suppose before we start, please like, share, rate, subscribe. But Connor, we have a special this time, and what a special it is.
Yeah, look, one of the friends of the podcast. It's a fantastic chat you had with Martin Brady, and Martin's been on a few times, just giving us, updates on his various exploits. But he's just reached a phenomenal milestone and perfect opportunity, Kevin, for you to have a chat with him.
Yeah, we thought we'd delve a wee bit deeper into, what makes Martin tick, and I think he's recently completed 600 starts according to EWRC, and and what a story it is. And that's only half the story, because there's so many other, between testing and one thing and another. It's just a fascinating story. And now he's working to CNM Motorsport as well too. So not only does he do rallying at the weekend, this rallying is his life, But I started out by asking him what got him started in motorsport.
Well, it's never meant to be a career. It was always meant to be. It started out as an obsession / hobby when I was a young lad. 1989 was when I saw my first rally. It was the Circuit of Ireland, and I was a young lad mad into tractors in particular, and blue tractors. And Circuit of Ireland, one of the stages started outside. The arrival control was at our gate of our farm, and the start control was down at the neighbours. Went down and watched it. Was completely captivated by these two Ford Sierras, 2-door or 3-door Sierras, and that was the works. McRae's, Jimmy in a Group A car, Colin in a Group N car, and it took off from there. That was 89. Went on, through school, would have gone to rallies, did a little bit of marshalling with a local guy who was a family friend, and he had competed and did some marshalling. But rallies were quite small then to me. My circle was, you'd go to Cavan, Monaghan, you'd go to Galway, you might go to the circuit, but that was it. There was never a trip to Donegal or Killarney or anything like that. So then college came in later years, very much motivated not by education, but by one particular episode of RPM where they had James Cullen interviewed, and he was in Boyce's Cafe as it was then. And to me, Letterkenny seemed like the centre of the universe for rallying. And I'm going to go to college there, I think my mother...
the course, just want to get you there, Kenny.
yeah, my mother had these great notions it was going to be UCD or something. I never know. She was giving me aiming high and room to fall. It was never going to be Trinity or something. But when I picked Letterkenny, it was like, what are you going there for? So she found out eventually. But yeah, joined the motor club there, and that got me more involved in rallying, a little bit of marshalling and stuff. Got me a good ground and met good people there. Then joined a motor club was closer to home, because home at that point was Navan in County Meath. Joined the motor club in Ardee. It was the Northeast Motor Club at the time. And funnily enough, I was training. I went on then. I was a civil servant for a number of years. I was a Garda. So when I was training for that, I was with the road transport unit at a checkpoint on the Quays, and they were stopping trucks. And lorry driver stopped up and got chatting. He said, I know you, you're in the motor club. And that's right. And there's a guy called Mickey Cooper from between Slane and Cullen in County Meath. And he was building a Sierra at the time, a 4-door Pinto rear-wheel drive engine one. And I said, I'd love to start co-driving sometime. And he gave me a shot, and away we went. We did our first rally they called it Rally of Ireland, I think, if I remember rightly. It was an ALMC event, ran out of the Square Shopping Centre in Tala in Dublin, and that was my first rally, and it was in a Sierra, and I just thought this was brilliant. I thought it was the best thing ever, the world changed that day for me for sure. I can still, one regret is that I don't have a picture of that rally or that car. I'd love to find one sometime, if someone can help me with that. But I just remember the excitement of the first junction. I know the stage was up in the Dublin Mountains, and I remember the stage was delayed for reasons which I understand now. in the kerfuffle, let's say, getting to the stage. He was slightly late, and he clipped Tommy Graham's wheel and broke Tommy Graham's suspension, whatever it was. And there was a bit of a delay in the stage. Tommy didn't get going, but off. And I remember there, like, just the delay and all the cars there, and thinking it was cool. And then came down to the first junction, and it was such a surreal moment. It sounds silly now, but at the time, just to be from the inside looking out and seeing people on the junction. And I probably wasn't very good. I don't remember, but it was just, I knew that's what I wanted to do. There was never an interest in going driving. I wouldn't drive out of your way. And that was the first rally, and Mickey gave me that chance. And then I ended up doing a few more rallies with him, then even graduating to a Subaru the following year. And I just took off from that. I just grabbed it with both hands. Any weekend I could be in a rally car, I wanted to go. And that's the way it was. And just, was lucky enough to talk to the right people and got some good advice at the start as to how to approach it. And he did things like, like Paul Goodman was very good to me. He was in that motor club at the time. He gave me great advice on how to get started, and probably saved me a lot of mistakes at the start. Not that we all make mistakes at the start, and some we still make them now. We just maybe are better at hiding them. But he gave me good advice, and then I then also who else was good to me back then? There was so many people. I was just lucky to fall in with the right people to steer me in the right direction and help me get a couple of seats. And one thing that did very good for me, I did some gravel notes for Gary Jennings, and that got me in the sort of slipstream of Gordy Noble, and I saw how Gordy did things. And at that time Gary was in the Super 1600 Peugeot. So, that was a cool car even to be involved in when they'd go testing and stuff. It was brilliant, but I just saw how a guy that was at the top of his game, and Gordy would have been a hero because you would have seen him with the Fishers and with Rory Gallagher and so on, and just copied and pasted some of the stuff that guys like he were doing. And like one of the cool things I use still to this day, Gordy never had a page. I noticed doing the gravel notes, Gordy never had a page 12 in his, never had a page 13 in his notes. He'd go 12, 12 and a half, 14, and for no reason other than Gordy did it, I copied it. Not superstition. It is a superstition, but it's not. I wouldn't be afraid of 13 in any other walk of life, but my notes have never had a page 13. And just very lucky. Then I met another guy in Dublin who was doing some rallies in the UK, gravel rallies, that got me across to Wales and Scotland. Got involved with the team that subsequently ended up running Andreas Mikkelsen, and that made a connection that when Mikkelsen came to Ireland in 2007, I was involved with him in the background, and that got me doing gravel notes in the World Championship in his early years. Led to cool things like when Loeb came to Cork. Remember, I was doing gravel notes for Andreas, and part of that would have been at the end of the stages to take times and give him times, because makes us all sound very Appendix K and historic now, but this was internet results weren't as what they were today. You were more, it was the Brian Patterson standing at the end of the stage and the bulletins and what have you. So Loeb, there was all the people gathered there looking for times, and Loeb didn't stop. He drove past everyone. I was a little bit further down the road at the junction, and I just put my hand up, sort of salute. And Daniel Elena, who knew me just by eyesight, that's one of those guys, Mickelsen's guy, would have seen you at Park Fermes and stuff, and he stopped with me and he opened the door, and I said, "Good morning, Daniel. How are you? Welcome to Ireland. Good morning, Sebastian. Welcome to Ireland. What time did you do in there?" And he stopped and he told me, and it was cool stuff. That's all I ever wanted to do, to be involved at that level, and little things like that were just cool. And yeah, that was I'm such an anorak for the sport, and I love it, and I live it like that, and I've been very, very fortunate with me. It's done so much for me, and 600 is a brilliant number. I never thought it would get there. I've been looking forward for a while to get into it, because when I started, again, I go back to good advice. Somebody at the start advised me to just keep a note in a little notebook of the rallies you do and something about them, because you'll forget them. And I didn't think that was ever possible. But I started a spreadsheet, which I still have to this day. This was, again, pre-WRC. And I was in the habit then of keeping the front page of every road book, and just on a spreadsheet, a little bit of a note about a rally. And it's nice now to go back and you see things that you would have thought you would have remembered. But it's now I can see the way, the seasons I did. There was obviously with a number like that, I'm looking at it there. There was years I did 32 rallies in a season. I'm not sure what my biggest number was, but if we average it out, if I started in 2000, we're in 25 now. It always had to be 20 something a year at least. So that's a few weekends away. But then there was times that I did 2 rallies in the one weekend. I would have done something, Northern Ireland Championship on the Saturday.
And
Yeah,
national round on a Sunday or whatever kind of thing.
National Forest on a Sunday or something like that. So there
Yeah.
was always a bit of trying to do as much as possible. But I've sat. One thing I counted that I don't know. It depends on what way you look at it. But I've sat with 100 on stages. I've sat with 127 drivers, and I've been very fortunate that some of those have turned out to be very, very good friends and a big part of our life and our family outside of the sport. Not that there's much outside of the sport in our house, much revolves around it. But I'm thinking of people like I first met Martin Kearns, went to buy a car off him, bought the car, but went to buy a golf and came home with a 3 Series. So I can really
So who the winner was there, yeah.
and that started a friendship because a couple of weeks later he called me to do the Monaghan Forestry Rally. Did it with him in a Group N Subaru WR03 SUB, and then there's a rally I missed. Monaghan Forestry was a great rally. I'd love to have that one back. It's one I have good memories of. We did that rally, and I don't know how many rallies I've done with him since. A fair few, but he's a firm friend. Seamus Burke the same. I met Seamus Burke. I did some work for back in the day, if you remember Stan Harper Rally Prep.
Done Lynch's cars and all that.
Yeah, that's right. I always tried to be as organized as I could and present. It wasn't the job I was in at the time. I was used to paperwork and presenting a file, so I would have done service schedules and stuff. And when I was at the team I spoke about it in the UK, Ramsport, when I was with them one weekend, there was an Irish mechanic, Philo, who's still around. I meet him at rallies with Tommy Buckley. So the sport, it just revolves around. We meet so many people and we're all in the same bubble. But he saw my service schedule and they were going to a rally the next weekend. They didn't have any information. And he called me up. I was in work. I said, you know what you did for the rally last weekend? Would you've won for, I can't even remember which rally it was. And I said, yeah, I have it here. And again, showing my age and how much we've all progressed, I said, yeah, no bother. I'll fax it to you.
No emails, no nothing.
Yeah. Well, there was email. We weren't just that historic, but I had it printed out, and the easiest way was I'll fax it to you. Faxed it up. Stan happened to be at the fax when it came through and said, sure, come up and have a chat with me. And then that ended up that every rally they went to after that, as you say, in the Kevin Lynch years and so on, I was doing stuff for them, and it was great to be involved, maps and things, and, would have went to some of the rallies in very much in the background, but given a bit of a help out. Also brought me to meet, people I wouldn't have met otherwise. But the one thing it did do for me was it got me in with Kevin O'Kane. And Kevin was probably the person I learned the most from. Kevin had a lot of rallies done, an absolute gentleman, but a fierce competitor and very wily in his ways. And probably we're not far enough away from in time from some of the stories, but I could write a book of great stories just from some of the adventures we had and handlings we got ourselves out of. The P2000 when we had it, that just ate gearboxes for lunch. And there was many a service area that on paper we weren't late out of, but in reality we were. And different bits and pieces. It was just, all great crack at the time. But I learned a lot off Kevin. He taught me. Kevin, from the outside, you wouldn't have thought it with him, but he was a man that in the early days really believed in analysing videos before you went to rallies and doing pace notes. And I would leave Dublin at whatever time I was finished work and come to Oma and sit with him, and we put the hours in and talk over and analyse and say, well, what was this like last year and stuff. He put a lot of work in behind the scenes, that sort of stuff. And it was a good training because I wasn't really doing it so much with anyone. He instilled in me habits of, preparing properly that stood me to this day. And we got great stories out of him. And then he was the introduction to Seamus Burke for me. Started sitting with the Burkes in 2010, and that opened up. I had done one rally. No, I'd done more than one rally. I'd done another Irish gentleman who sadly is Celsus Donnelly, Charlie Donnelly, who's tragically passed away. He's no longer with us. He gave me my first shot in the US. I think that was 2005. Did STPR with him, and then did some rallies with Peter Vitorchik, a guy from Polish guy living in Chicago. Did some rallies with him in sort of 2007, 2008. And then Seamus started with the Burkes in 2010, and that's, gosh, I don't even know how many rallies I've done with Seamus, but lots of victories, lots of great days. Sat in a car that will be remembered in the same way as like something like Andy Burton's 306. Seamus's Escort is so unique. Um, Great memories and great photos from that, and then have sat with Joseph as well.
The next generation.
Even this year, got to do a rally in Ireland with Joseph, and that was really nice. I've done plenty over this side with Seamus as well, but the Burks were really good at getting me into America, and I've had some brilliant times over there with that. So it's not just inside the car; it has changed things for me. It's a way of life. It wouldn't be. It's my Monday to Friday now as well, since I joined CNM just over a year ago, and that changed life as well, because it wasn't something that one of these, as often happens, sure, we'll suck it and see. We'll see how we get on. I'd done a rally with Marty, had a few rallies done with him a few seasons before, but done a rally with Marty last year, and he spoke to me about maybe would I come and do some stuff with him in the business, and I said, yeah, sure, I'll give it a try. Didn't know how good I would be at it. Didn't know would he have the patience for me while I was learning that aspect of things, because I didn't know, I didn't know a drive shaft from a booklet. To me, rallying was just notes and time cards, and it's changed it so much for me, because what I do in CNM is I'm the part salesman. So if you want to buy a part, if you need anything from the front of an R5 to the back of an R5, if we have it, we'll sell it to you, and if we don't have it, we'll try and find it for you. But it means now that how it's changed things for me, I'll go down to my hunkers and I'll be checking tire pressures on an R5 Fiesta, and I'll look in and I'll see a part number of a wing liner or a brake line or something, and go, oh, yeah, I was counting one of those on the shelf 2 weeks ago. Yeah, I know that. Or in Cavan, we with Jason Dixon, we stopped the mechanical this year, and we thought it was one thing, and we stopped. We lost a lot of time, and it turned out just to be a boost pipe off. And when I opened the bonnet and I was looking in at it, I could tell you what it was and the part number of it. And I didn't really say that out loud to Jason. It wasn't really going to help matters at that point.
Yeah.
But I was able to get on the phone to Derek and go, look, here's what it is. I can see it's down here. It's the boost pipe and all that sort of stuff. So that's taught me a different side of the sport that I just never really looked at, never got involved in. I'm not going to say now I'd be any good if you put me lying under a thing with spanners.
You can give you a list of all the things you need, but maybe not be able to put them all together.
Yeah, so that was it. So yeah, here we are at 600. I never thought when I started. I had a lovely message from a friend of mine, a Letterkenny guy who I went to college with. There, he's not a rally person, but he would know. And he sent me a message on Facebook, and he said, he knew me from I was in Donegal. He said he knew it was always what I was going to be, like just a pure rally nerd, and that it was great to see that I managed to get after it, and I did, and it's a nice, I suppose, tab to look back and see what I've done, and I did tonight. I opened up the spreadsheet, which I hadn't opened in a while, because you have EWRC now, which is a fantastic site, because I have and will continue to spend hours on that site, going down rabbit holes of, that was that car, and who
did that before, and then where did it go to then, and all that.
Yeah, exactly. It's ingrained in me. Like I couldn't tell you really. I could just about tell you the reg of my own car.
Yes.
Couldn't tell you the reg of my wife's car. I wouldn't have a clue. I remember her phone number and my phone number. That's about it. Everything else I'd have to go to the phone. But I can tell you when Derek McGarty got S100 WRT, and then I replaced it with S90, and I tell you when Sean Devine had S20 WRT and all those things, and a lot of that was for me. Like I did some rallies in N555 WRC, which was the Andrew Nesbitt Group A car.
Yes.
When Trevor Harding had it. And I did 2 rallies with him, Lurgan Park, which is well remembered for
anybody that was there that day will never forget that.
Yeah, it was just as exciting from the inside. Like he has fantastic car control. He can put it wherever he wants. He was brilliant. But we got in a bit of trouble from going through a flower bed that day, and he may have mentioned to the stewards that it was a brake issue. He was kind enough not to even try and blame me as some driver. But I think looking across him was a very calculated move of, he just saw an opportunity that no one else had. The chicane was there, the flower bed was there. Nobody else had the brass neck, I'm going to say, to decide that instead of the chicane, they'd skip the chicane through the flower bed. But we were doing another rally a couple of weeks later. 2 hours. We're doing a rally a couple of weeks later, and someone mentioned him, will you go to Lurgan Park next year? And I said, I don't know if we'll get an in.
I may not be welcome back.
And Trevor's answer was, well, we have to see. I have to pay them the bill to send me for grass seed first. But that was brilliant. But I spend those rallies sitting in that car going, "Oh my God, this is the car that I stood on the ditch and watched the year Fisher and Nesbitt raced each other and knocked seconds out of each other to Bangor." The one that had the famous quote by Plum, what was it? Never has so much been provided for, what was it, so
So
few.
few, I know, by so many, for so many, by
By
so
so few,
few.
that's right. Yeah, with the underworld track push upstairs in the
Yes.
background. It's just
Yeah.
just iconic. Like I don't know who was using the music for Plum back then. I'm not sure if Plum was that big into underworld. I said it was, and I mean, but that was also a cool bit. And then there was like RPM was so
It's iconic, the stuff that I like, yeah.
yeah, and the way they could match music to the certain tracks. Like there was another one that had what's that other underworld track that's really good? 100 Days Off, and that was on another RPM. Niall McGonigal, NMG, was a good man there for a while at sending Snapchats of just the music of an RPM program. And which episode is this? And I had to give up just trying to compete with that because I was getting too competitive and wasn't getting enough of them right. I was spending far too much time on thinking and go back through it. But for me, yeah, that's what the sport has given me. It's been brilliant, and I can remember my first time on RPM was I did Lurgan Park with Damien Cole, and we were on it for a split second. But I remember coming home and having it recorded in VHS and thinking I had made it. I'd appeared on RPM. Technically, I had actually appeared in RPM before that, but it was a blink and you miss it. What year was it? The year that there was a load of the Formula 2 cars in Donegal. Paul Harris crashed on the Friday in the yellow two-door car. He spun and took a back wheel off it. It was the year McShea was there as well.
Oh, yes. Oh, no, you're sweet. 90.
But if you look where you see there's a Marshall comes running across the grass as Harris is going off. That's me. I think I was wearing a blue shirt at the time. I was in at that time. And also there was another year I was marshalling in Galway, and I've done the stage actually in reverse up the hill. Michael Lister of RTE fame, he came down the hill, and you blink and you definitely miss it. Even my mother wouldn't know it was me on it. But you see me, he comes down across the crest and losing the water, and it's at Plum ran it in the credits actually, and you just see me running out with the yellow flag. That was yeah, I was on it that time. And funny story, when I was in my previous life, when I was in the Gardaí, I was working at Crow Park one day, which I never really liked because GAA wasn't my thing, but invariably if you were stuck there on a Sunday, it meant you weren't at a rally.
Yes.
So I was never in great form when I was stuck outside Crow Park. Unless
and there was no Killian Landy to keep up to date either.
No, there was definitely but at the time, actually, no, there was. If anyone will remember, again, another one giving away the age. Remember stagetimes.com, Barry Meek,
yes.
when you would get the texts. Yeah, I remember getting them. I remember getting a call one time to do a rally with Fergal Allen, and I couldn't. It was the Galway the year they ran the West 2000, and I couldn't go because I had to work at a rugby match at Lansdowne Road, and I stood with a lip on me at that rally and was probably gave everybody bad manners. Nobody got a polite answer off me that day because I was looking at the texts coming through, stagetimes.com, and Fergal was leading the national that year, and I was there looking at so then when life moved on and I wasn't in a working shift work and that, it became so much easier to do rallies, and that accelerated the journey to 600. But yeah, that was a different time, and it was good. But one of the days I jumped back to the Crow Park story. I was outside Crow Park, standing on a barrier near Quinn's pub, and Michael Lister arrived in a Mondeo, and one of the stewards wasn't letting him in, and he hadn't brought his pass, if I remember right at the story. And I walked up to him, and he had the window down, and he was explaining to the guy, he's late. He needed to get in, and he didn't have his pass. And I went, no, it's okay. I know this guy. This guy's famous. You're Michael Lister, the rally driver, aren't you? And he sort of looked at me. And poor devil, he won't remember this because I'm sure he was quite flustered. He was tight for time. He needed to be somewhere 5 minutes ago. And I go, he's fine. He's the rally driver. He's fine. Where you go? Another time, I won't name the driver because it wouldn't be fair on him, but he was a fella that I would have watched in RPM. Lovely man, and he had some proper cars in his day. But if you remember, there was a motor show in the RDS, maybe 98, 99, something around about that time. And again, I'd been to the motor show. It was on for like 3 days, so I'd been the day before, and I think I was going the next day. But on the Saturday, I was working again, Lansdowne Road, standing in the middle of traffic. Everyone's between people at the show and the rugby people coming and so on. So there's a guy coming down in a big Toyota Jeep, and he didn't have a seatbelt on, and he had his window open. And I had my back to him, and I waited till he was beside me, and I turned and I went, "Mr. So-and-so, you're not wearing a seatbelt. You're a rally driver. You should be showing a better example." And so everybody got all frustrated, putting on his seatbelt. You're all right. Come here. Come on, you're all right. This was again back in the days. You wouldn't be giving him penalty points, so he got cautionary advice.
Yes.
Funny. I suppose you could say I was obviously I showed bias towards. Poor Devil, he'd only pulled out of the car park, that was.
We'll get by this time.
I don't think he was expecting that. And then again, another day, there's always a rally connection. There's always a rally connection to the stories. I met a gentleman who I'd just come back from doing a rally on the Saturday in, I think it was maybe border counties in Scotland, with Richard Cathcart. And again, there's names of people that just became, sat in a rally car with them and became great friends and part of life outside of rallying. I'd come back from doing a rally with Richard, and we'd been racing Keith Cronin. I think Keith and Greg stopped that day, so they didn't finish. But Mick Cremin was bringing a bus of Cork people, Cremin's coaches, who were a long-time sponsor of Keith, and he was parking inside the cordon at Croke Park, and I went up to him and said, "Okay, I'm going to let you park there now, just because you're a sponsor of Keith Cronin's. That's why I'm letting you park there. You're all right there. You're a rally sponsor." And again, he was looking at me and didn't know where we come from. So, yeah, it was good. So there's always like, again, Lisa and I we were in a shopping centre in upstate New York one day and met a rally driver and stopped and started chatting. I met an Irish rally driver, so we're never too far away. It's always a rally story.
And like those younger years, you said Gordon Noble was a big inspiration and all that. Like at that age, you were just a sponge. You were like any information that you could gather, whether it was Gordy or whoever. Like, would you be advising anybody young starting out in the game now, get somebody that you can, and don't be scared to ask questions. That's the great thing about rallying. People are so helpful, aren't they?
Yeah, 100%. Every day is a school day. I still learn and I still watch stuff and watch how other people do it and why is he doing it that way, or I would do that or I wouldn't do that, or I'm always looking at bulletins after a rally to see if somebody made a mistake, would that have happened to me? Or there's a lot of learning in that, because the further up the timesheets you go, probably the more pressure the environment gets, because there's more consequence to it. Lads in other seats and further in different places on the entry list, they'll approach their rally differently. So it's never any harm to watch those people. I did a rally. I was in the Manx one year with Richard Cathcart, and we were having a brilliant run. We could just do no wrong. He was an absolute dream to sit with, and we clicked in the car from the first day I sat in with him. We just got on really well. We had a great bond in the car. We blathered away about tractors and different stuff, and I trusted him implicitly. As wild as it might have looked from the outside, there was never a corner I thought, no matter what angle we came into it, there was never a corner I thought we weren't getting around, and I'd absolute trust and faith in him. But we were doing a rally in the Manx, and I was trying to do my best there. We were up with the big boys. We were leading Group N, and there was pressure, because at that point you're treble checking everything. You're counting on fingers and toes, and even then I'm not great at counting. I can read away, but maths lets me down sometimes. But Mike Broad, who was a Russell Brooks co-driver, a big name, he came over and he opened the door and he said to Richard, "I'm very impressed by that young man. He's doing everything properly. I've noticed him do something there." He said it was very, very good, very smart. He's a good. I think maybe Mike knew Richard's family. He might have known his dad or something like that.
Right.
Anyway, I saw him speaking to Richard, and I didn't pass any remarks. And I got back and jumped in the car, and Richard, "Hi, what about your man there?" He says, "You're all right. I think I'll keep you." And we had a bit of joking about it. And I found Mike Broad afterwards and said, "Thank you very much. You were complimentary to Richard. Would you mind me telling you what it was?" And he wouldn't. He said, "I'll tell you someday, young man." But the point I'm making is, I'd say I could have asked him anything. If you try your best, that's all you can do. But try and learn from people. And I say, Gordy taught me, and I've never a problem if anyone wants to ask me a question. I'll give you an answer as best I can give it. No problem helping people. If you're just come up to someone when they've a moment to talk to you. I ask you later, because sometimes I will say sometimes I'll maybe bark at someone.
Uh,
Lisa, she's seen me at rallies sometimes where she comes in, she's been to rallies and she'd say, well, so and so standing over there drinking a cup of tea. You're running around the service area. You're looking times. You're looking this. That's just how I won't relax, and I don't relax much. It depends. Like some days you will, but you're always trying to think of the next thing and just
trying to be a step ahead, maybe.
yeah, just trying to be. Well, me, it's just not make a mistake. You're trying to think that you want everything as right as you can, and there's times that you'll get a bark from me when I'm in rally mode. But if I bark, I definitely don't bite. I might bark, but I definitely have to bite to back it up. But yeah, ask anyone questions or just stand and watch people, observe the way people are doing it. There's not always, and obviously there's a black and a white way versus the rules, and
Yeah.
experience will teach you how to navigate your way with them or against them, depending on how you need. But yeah, just stand and watch someone and see why they're doing it the way they're doing it, and maybe ask them afterwards. But it's not rocket science either. If you just know the general procedures and you know your rules, you're in good stand. And I would say a lot of the time, you've won. You can win your rally at home with your preparation, and that's something that has stood to me. I'm just in a habit of it with years and years of keeping in car, looking at in car. I study everybody's in car. I'll take a look at it and see, not to see to give a judgment that someone has done it a right or a wrong way, but just to learn something, even just to learn the roads or get a bit of familiarity with something.
I could maybe it's just some way they call a corner that might save you a fraction of a second. Something like that. Could that be something that you might look to incorporate then maybe somewhere else?
Yeah, that's an example. I would have done that years ago. Would have looked at stuff like Michael Barrable springs to mind in his notes, and some of the stuff he would have had in it with Dermot O'Gorman. They would have had their distances in thousands and 2,000. They were using whatever meters, but he would have probably with him. It was a link back to the days of blind rallying when you're just on a road book, and Seamus Burke would have this in his notes because they're used to that driving by sight. So you're following tree lines and following. The variable note that springs to mind is follow the wires, follow the wires, follow the wires.
Yeah.
That'll be him looking ahead and seeing the telegraph poles. And obviously that can be a negative too. You can follow them and
then go the wrong way.
follow the corner, but you probably just would not say it there then. So yeah, watching stuff like that. And Mickey Joe Morrissey's another man that I learned a lot of, because Mickey Joe, when you look at Mickey Joe, he gives this whole laid back horizontal approach. But really, Mickey Joe, the best way I could heard him described, he's like the duck. You see him, on the but underneath it's moving. Mickey Joe, the head is moving the whole time, and he's just sharp. He misses nothing. As those guys, I would have watched and saw what they did. And when I would look a lot at if I ever see anyone else's notes, the way they would write notes and what they use as shorthand. When I picked up from, and I use it to this day. And it's nice when I see it. I remember it. It's a fun thing when I look at it. Gareth Roberts, the way he had sharp in his notes, he used a hashtag symbol, and I picked that up when doing gravel notes with Craig, and I use it, and it's just that's like the Gordy thing, with the 13. It's in my mind. That was the first time I saw Gareth use that, so that's in my mind, and things like that you pick up off other people. Something, because I think for a driver, notes are whatever goes into your brain. I'll say it whatever way you want. It doesn't matter to me. Whatever, everyone's brain is different. The way they take in words or information. Yes. People take in numbers more than taking words. It's how you paint the picture for the driver, what's coming up in front of you. But for us as co-drivers, the way we write it on the page, everybody's everybody's eye falls different. So I look at the way some people are doing their handwriting and go, yeah, actually I like that, or I wouldn't do this, I would do that, or that sort of thing. So yeah, always get a chance to look at the way someone else does it, and ask questions. Like there's a lot now with academies and different things, and there's a lot more. Certainly publicly, it seems there's a lot more analysis and preparation going into it, or supports there. But if you're not fortunate enough to be involved in one of those programs, it doesn't mean you can't try and attain the same level of analysis and professionalism as best you can. Just go and talk to someone and learn, and just do your best. Everyone wants to get whatever they want to get out of the sport. All I wanted to do at the start was be involved. I just wanted to be looking from the. Now I will say the best way to look at rally cars is through the windscreen. I should say I'm very fortunate with that, and that's all I ever wanted to do was sit in rally cars, and I've been lucky to do it so much. Not just days competing, but I've had wonderful days sitting in rally cars testing. I've been fortunate enough, and I know I'll forget names here, but I've been managed to be in rally cars with heroes like Kenny McKinstry was my hero in the Legacy caliber days. Lucky enough to sit with Kenny on a test. I did a good, multiple times in with Derek McGarty, another hero. I just liked the way he done stuff, and I always would have rooted for him. He was my driver in those days when he was in all the S9s and stuff, and to sit in with him on tests was brilliant. I've done some testing with Dommy Buckley, and Dommy's just brilliant. Like Dommy, like what a guy! No matter what way you look at it, as a guy to run a team, as a serviceman when you're a mechanic when you're in a panic, a man just to solve anything. Throw Dommy a problem and he'll solve it.
As a driver, never mind,
Yeah, but as a driver, like if you look at Dommy ran in the slipstream and right beside, kept with the Richard Burns, the two McRae's, Johnny Milner, all those guys when they were young guns coming up Shell scholarship. He was right there with them, so he was at the cutting edge then. And he still is at the cutting edge, just running the brilliant team that he runs. So yeah, I got to do some stuff with Dommy on a test. That was cool. Mark Higgins, Marco Martin, when Dermot Hannafin brought them to the McKinstry team for Cork 20 that time, that was really good. And even that day, it was cool to sit with Marco. But the big thing for me was to see up close how his man worked there. He had David Senior sitting, and just to see him and how he did, and that was really good. I even that day I picked up a few things about him. The way he laid out his road book and the extra bits of information he put in it for himself. And I would have been self-conscious in that you'd think, why would you need to write little reminders to yourself in a road book? Surely that's making yourself look naive. But then when you see professionals do it like that, and you go, at the end of the day, we're all only human, whatever works for you. The same thing when I would have gone to the World Championship rallies and saw Marcus Gronholm's co-driver using a TomTom sat-nav at the time. And you think, oh my God, like these World Championship boys using a sat-nav, surely they wouldn't expose themselves as... But it was another tool, and he embraced it and went with it. And saw lads, and little things like that you would have seen. This was back in the days of digital cameras, and you didn't have cameras in your phones. You would have seen those guys coming to a stage stop and taking pictures of time cards or pictures of results in the side of the road, and you're going, oh, okay. And I took that in, and that was something I saw Mickey Joe on a rally where we had an incident and the stage was blocked, and Mickey Joe went to his bag and took a picture of the time and took a picture of when he was blocked on the road. And I thought that was just the sharpness. And I sound like an awful country in here, but I hadn't seen a digital camera at that point. The first time I'd seen someone with a digital camera, a compact digital camera, and said to Mickey Joe, where'd you get? Oh, I got that there a couple of rallies ago in the Middle East. And we got it, and he just said his low key. I just said I'd take a picture here, but what he was doing, he was documenting everything that
If there's ever any query, he had it then.
Oh, he had it.
He had a paper trace
going on, and those sort of things I've picked up and went along with. So keeps coming back to the point. If you want to learn, just look at how other people are doing. And it was Greg Shinners, who's another a massive inspiration to me. I always thought when I was coming up at starter rallies, Greg would have been sitting with, back then, this is pre his Cronin days, he would have been with Eddie Kinnairns winning the Forestry Championship, and then with Rory Galligan. And Greg was someone I really looked at, he was such a nice fella to chat to. I liked him, I respected him. I was glad for him to see him when he was doing well, because he was such a decent skin, and one of those people that if you went to with a query, he was enthusiastic, and he wanted to help you, and he wanted to give you an answer, and such a man on rules. If Greg is watching, I always tell this story, and I tell it so much so that I know it embarrasses him, and I love coming back to this one. A, because it winds up when I tell the story, and B, it's just an example of, if you're sharp and you're professional and you've your work done before you get to the rally, you've made the job so much easier for yourself. It was at a rally in Scotland. It was the first time they brought out this mandatory that you had to carry a spill kit, and then we had management, chase crews, to call them their politically correct name, management cars. and it was the great days. So it was in the regs that you had to carry a spill kit. Rally car to carry a spill kit. Chase car management had to carry a spill kit, and the first one was provided to you for free. So we got to the scrutineer, and the poor organisers were there, and they had 130 crews. They'd ordered 130 spill kits. Greg rocked up to collect his spill kit and his scrutiny sheet, and I was watching this from a distance, but listening. And it was here's your car number, whatever you are, car number 9. Here's your spill kit. There you are. Thank you very much. And Greg went, okay, yeah, thank you. And where's the one from my chase car? And they went, your chase car? Yes, it says here that it must be that you will provide. Can I have my one for my chase car? And they were, oh, well, we only have, so many. And Greg was, that's fine. Can I have my one for my chase car? And they had to give Greg the spill kit. They were running around flapping that they didn't have. It's all Greg Shinner's fault. Greg had his 2 spill kits, and he was completely compliant with the rules, and it was just... So I knocked great crack out of that day. I'd missed that. I hadn't spotted that. I didn't. I thought, I better get that out spill kit. But it taught me a lesson. I didn't read that bit properly. I missed that little, you wouldn't call it a loophole. Well, it certainly was a loophole. Greg opened the gate from them there. And things like that. And I enjoy now spotting those things. Now that it gives you a bit of a boost if you've spotted something that somebody else hasn't missed. These things are to some level they're inconsequential, but it won't win or lose your rally, but it just shows you that you're paying attention,
for sure. And as well too, like, you have to touch, you sort of glossed over it, some of the iconic cars you've sat in over the years too, like cars that have come out of the World Championship, and then some very ordinary cars that's built, maybe in some guy's shed out or back the house or whatever. Like, you've been, I would say it's a privilege to sit in nearly, I would say all the cars you've sat in over the years.
Yeah, like there's one that springs to mind when you say that. I did a Galway, the historic part of Galway International one year with Brian Brophy, another man who's no longer with us, and what a character. Brian Brophy was a barrister and a brilliant one of that. If you ever saw him in action, he was top class. And such a good man, like so decent, and he was an FIA steward and to Formula One level, Grand Prix, and he'd such stories from that, and he had such a way of telling them. But that recce I remember so fondly because there was so many stories from it. And one of them was that Eddie Irvine didn't speak to him because he excluded him from a Grand Prix one time. But he put Michael Schumacher out of a win in the British Grand Prix, and Michael Schumacher still sends me a Christmas card. I'm sure the story of nothing and Helen, but I did the rally with him in Hillman Imp rear end. Blue one, yeah. I just remember like the first corner. I'd never been in something that was rear engine, and it come down the first corner. He threw this car in, and I was, oh my god, like where I was looking at the point in the hedge where we were going to go, and then the weight transfer happened, and away we went. I think we got 2 stages before it broke down. We had no service crew. We were really. It was lastminute.com, suck it and see, and we had no service crew. So Brophy, he called the AA and he gave them the reg of the Hillman and said, "Yeah, I've broken down, and this is one of my cars, and I'm an AA member." And the guy couldn't. Obviously, you're talking to a call center in Middlesex or something, They couldn't find them in the system. And are you sure? Yes, I'm sure. I'm standing here looking at it. And yes, now please send the tow truck. And he's like making a plan. Right, we'll get back to service. We'll do this. We'll do that. March Cunningham had a phone call. He was gonna, he was being roped in to fix it for us. And nobody could say no to Brophy. Like he was that sort of character. And sure enough, and I think he gave my number because the tow truck driver was ringing me coming, and he was like, "You're in such and such a place, are you?" And I said, "Yeah, we are." Yeah, there's a rally on there today. Around about there. Are you part of the rally? And I'm no, we're not doing the rally, no. But some of them routes is closed. No, we're definitely not on the closed road. We broke down the start line, we broke the drive shaft, we pushed it back. And I'm going, no, we're definitely not in the rally, no. Go ahead now. And your man arrived and then realised that, hey, you're in the rally, you told me you weren't. And Brophy's like, well, you're here now, so you might. Yeah, you yeah, and we went back with the AA back. He dropped us off in service, and that was just, so that was one car that was so different. But like I managed to sit with Ken Block in that Escort Cosworth, and I love everything Escorts and Escort Cosworth. They're the car for me. They're what I grew up looking at. With the Cathcarts, they own
The very
to me,
first day.
like the very first Escort Cosworth, yeah, H930 JHJ, the Talavera car. Got to do the slowly sideways part of Rally Ireland with Richard that year and in '09, and that was just, I won't say I didn't appreciate it, that's not correct. I didn't appreciate it. We were very focused on, we're going to do the rally and how we're going to get on here, and we're going to put on a great show, that I didn't probably stop to take pictures enough of it, of this is that car that was on my wall. I was very conscious of it when I was in it. Oh my God, this was a car on my bedroom wall. But when 321 came, or as soon as we picked up the first time card, we had this idea in our head of, I won't say we were naive, but we had this idea in our head, but we were going to go out here and we were going to set times as good as we did last year in the Group N car, because we had the notes from the previous year, and we thought, oh, we're gonna make this yoke sing. We did a little bit, but then we broke it. So we probably drove. We cut our own day short by putting the poor old thing under too much pressure. Like we broke something in the front diff and had to stop before we completely destroy what is, to me, a priceless car. So there was things like that. And what else have I been
and
in?
even with Block as well too. It was the very first. Well, I suppose it was still an R5 car at that stage, but the first Fiesta ever.
That's right. Yeah, that's right. That was the first time that was seen outside of Ford, and that was cool. That was a privilege to be in that day, because the engineer was there, and Ken had given people like a joyride, let's say, in the Escort. But when it came to that, it was back in, and he was in testing mode. We wanted to time it and so on, and the engineer wanted to know how it was going. So, yeah, that was different. That was nice. Enjoyed that. I mean, there's other ones. I've remembered. I forget more than I remember. That's the thing sometimes.
Because you talked about Andrew Nesbitt, repaying a favour as well to you. You mentioned that before we started.
Yeah, that was a brilliant memory. So Marshall's Day, which was rounding in Mondello back then. I was at that. I was the person at the end of the pit lane lifting the flag and letting people out. I'd met Andrew Nesbitt, however many months the Ulster was before that. So we're talking that was January, late January.
4 or 5 months before.
Yeah, the previous September, whatever the Ulster was, when he had his accident just outside Armagh. On that stage, one I've done actually, funny, such irony, Jason Dixon and myself last year, we came to grief and clipped the car like 200, 300 meters from the other side of the junction, and stopped up the road. But there's pictures of this in Car Sport. My brother was with me that day. So Nesbitt rolls there at the corner and into the field, and he's gathering himself up, and he saw a different side to that day. Everyone, expected that he'd be, eyes out and stalks, mad to go again. But he was very calm and collected in the moment, making sure that James O'Brien was okay and that we're okay to go on and so on. They'd done a reasonable amount of damage. But I was there helping them. As I said, there's a picture in Car Sport of me picking the bits of the bumper and stuff up the road. I'm in a grey and black Sparko jacket. But I had them gather themselves up because it was in a remote enough place. There was no other spectators there. Initially, other lads came. But he thanked me for it, and off they went. And then at Marshall's Day, he recognised me. He came to me and said, "Oh, hey, fella, I thank you very much. I remember you. Thanks for your help that day. I'll come get you later. I'll bring you for a spin." And thank you very much. Now, he was there testing the car they went to Sweden that year. So the car was on gravel suspension, gravel brakes. He was just there to get a feel for how it was going to be for Sweden. But the morning session went off grand, where the marshals are in, and then came to the afternoon session where the drivers got to bring their own guests. And I was standing there in the pit lane of Mondello, and in fairness, he came running out, "Hey, young fella, come on, come on. I said, come on." I assumed he was being polite. He'd probably not even forget, but he would just get so busy. He'd have so many people to bring. And I was strapped into the S7 as she was, but S8 again, here's the nerd coming out to me. X12 SRT with she was the S9 running gear. And it was Conley got me the photo. It was John Bailey that found it for me. There's a cool photo of us, he's hopping the curbs out through the hole in the hedge corner, I think in Mondello. He's hopping across the curb. She's up slightly on two wheels, and me sitting in there with the Sparko, carbon Sparko helmet on me, which is my pride and joy at the time, and big smiley head on me. I just thought this was, an S8 and gravel trim then, she wouldn't have been the best handling yoke around Mondello. But I didn't know that at the time.
This was it. This was the pinnacle.
Oh, it was brilliant. And it was such a nice memory. I was so chuffed with that, and it gave me a feel of what world cars were like really inside them. And I thought if I never sat in another rally car after that I'd got to the peak. So yeah, that was really good. That was really good. Another one was Kyle Tilley, Era Motorsport, another person who's been very good to me in the sport and brought me so many places. He had, for a short time, had an Escort WRC, and I was just head over heels about that car, like fully in love with it. And we were to take it to Rally Legends, and fate intervened. We blew the engine, but I still got to do the test with him that day.
Right. Yes.
And just to sit in this, it was one of the latter ones, so it would be comparable to the Boland black car, the
Yes.
digital dash, the
Mm-hmm.
popping and the banging of it. And to be sitting in that car that day, we were testing a racetrack at Blighton in England, and I was just sitting looking at this thing like, this is just cool. And it wasn't as quick or anything as an
No.
R5. It wasn't that excitement. Times have moved on, everything's moved on, but it was still just so cool to be sitting in this thing popping and
Yeah. And as this, all the sensations we think of when we hear it from outside, as all
yeah.
that and more inside.
Oh, it's brilliant inside. It's just class. Every time you pull it, you hear it banging. And that was just such a fun day because Craig Breen had his Escort WRC at the time, and I'd been texting him, nerding back and forth about them, and he was very much like that, chassis numbers and whether it was a Borum car or an M Sport car and all this sort of stuff.
Yes.
And we were sending videos of that back that day, flagging his one off because he only had the bad out stack dash and his was one of the things for that. It was just great. And then I did the circuit with Ray. I hadn't sat with Ray. 2009, I think we done our last rally together in the Focus, but we'd won the championship, the forestry in '08, and had a great year. And Ray brought me to my first win in the forestry championship. He got me first win in a national rally when we won Ravens Rock. That was another great memory because we went from an absolute plane crash where we lost. We were leading Wicklow and just dropped a wheel in the rain and tumbled down the road and left bits of the Focus everywhere. And Ravens Rock was, I want to say it was 2 weeks later, and Tom Gahan put the car back together brilliantly. We stepped into it on the test, and the paint was still soft in it, like it was still drying. You could smell of paint in it, like no exaggeration. Did a quick test on the Saturday evening and went out, and like Ray just get in the car and straight away bang up the road like nothing had ever happened. Whereas I was thinking, I was nervous, but I thought, oh, we have to play ourselves in here. No, bang, gone down the road. Went to the Rock and fast in the first stage away we went and won Ravens Rock, and that was just for me such a memory because I would remember going to watch that rally as a kid and coming down and watching stages in that area, and it was the whole job. But then it was last year. Yeah, it was last year. I did the circuit with Ray in the Legacy.
Oh yeah.
It was lovely because jump back in the car and his notes. There's certain elements of them that were different. His distances wouldn't match other people's distances, but they work for him. And it felt grand to be sitting in the car and just straight away down from the first corner. Oh, this is what it feels like. And it was so many years. We'd been in the car together before, but that was my first run in a proper Legacy.
Yeah, that noise again, So
Yeah, but he was saying to me, you just need to watch me here because this show, like, she doesn't have the brakes. And you go, she must be all right. And then you realize it is because it's an Appendix K historic car. It's the period brakes. And
they're a big heavy car too, aren't they?
Stop well, like, and they are a heavy bus. So you're sitting inside and you hear that, the clicking of the dog box, but then when you go to stop the thing and she becomes like, she's like Sammy Sealing trying to get her So it's a different thing. But also that day I have a cool memory from that Mikey Galvin, that man, he's some cameraman.
Yes.
He got a couple of just shots on his phone of these brilliant ones of us just, cutting a wee corner, and then just the pop and the bang of it, like you just would have heard in the RPM days when you were looking at H187 GUD or H7 Cal, all these iconic cars. So it was, if I get quarter as many memories ahead of me as I have behind me, there'll be nothing wrong with it. Like, I've been very fortunate, and I keep coming back to the point that, I look down the list of people I've been in rally cars with, and so many of them have been so good to me outside of the sport and become friends. It's got me so much. I think of, I did stuff with Era there for a couple of years, and that was, I started with rally and with Kyle. I just sat with him in a rally and away we went, and that took me to standing on the roof in Daytona as a spotter, Road America. Who would have ever thought that I'd be involved in stuff like that, going to historic races, or IMSA races, 24-hour races, all that was just so good, and something that you never would have thought you would have got involved in. Life is now here. I'm very much Oma based now with work, and I have the Dixon family. When we moved to Oma, the Dixon family were so good to us. So it extends just outside of rally, and it's great to have that. There's so many people that were very good to each other as a sport in good times and in
Yeah,
bad.
bad time.
When we bad days, and there's been some
Yeah,
this year.
cruel days. Yep.
We don't, yeah, that don't bear repeating. But there's been a lot of tragedy this year, and poor families that are suffering. And in those days, you see how we come together and help each other. And there's always that. And I've thankfully never, touch wood, I never had hurt like that. But you can, yeah, it's such a great sport, and we are so good to each other that it's given me a great life experience, and I don't know how life would have been without it, but it would have looked very, very different. That's for sure.
Yeah, and that young guy that went down to see, the start of the Circuit Ireland all those years ago, like, what would he be thinking now if he looked at you now that you're
I'll tell
still
you
living
what
the
it-
dream?
I'll tell you what I was doing the other day. I spotted on Facebook Marketplace some guy had the RED, the team. Oh no, it was no, sorry, it was MLP, Mike Little Preparations. He had the Mike Little map book and service
Yes,
book
from that year.
from that year,
Yes,
and straight away, bang, I'll buy it. I'll send you the money now.
take my money.
And he's like, because he wanted, what was it, 30 or 35 quid or something for it. Just get it, buy it. And he said, oh, it's actually, sorry, the ad wasn't that old. He said, oh, it's gone. He said, it was actually quite popular. I had a lot of queries about it. But I found on eBay before that the road book of the 89 circuit, and I have it. It's at home in Galway in the office. And I meant to go and drive the route someday. I did a bit of mapping on it, where it went, because to me the rally was just that corner. I didn't know where. Knew it was the Circuit of Ireland, but where it went after that.
Yeah.
And yeah, that was that. Yeah, to actually have that just shows the nerd I am, to have gone and bought that road book, and I put it away in a little cardboard cover. It's sitting in the office at home on the shelf there. That someday we must go out and follow that properly. But yeah, if there's anyone out there watching that has any memorabilia from the '89 Circuit of Ireland, the Bank of Ireland Finance Circuit of Ireland, you can hold me to ransom for it. I want them. Because, yeah, that's where it all started. So yeah, I never would have thought that. And there was nobody in my family. My brother, my younger brother Bevan, has a good strong interest in cars, a little bit of an interest in rally, and he comes to the odd rally. Him and my nephew were at where were we, in Ravens Rock. So Aaron, my nephew, I had him in the car with me last year. He sat in my knee in Park Ferme in Wexford, and he had a bit of an interest. I don't know if we can lean him towards being a co-driver, but we'll give it a go. He sat on my knee driving into service in Ravens Rock, and he loved that. And that was, yeah, that was nice. He's the only person in my family. My father would chat to me about results, and he'd like to see how you get on. Wants to see you get on well, and it'd be, where are you this weekend, or where are you going next week? My mother came to a rally once that I was competing in. It was the Northeast Single Stage outside RD. Left after 5 minutes, complained about the noise and the smell, and never
Wasn't for her.
never been near rallying since. There was a time that Lisa picked me up at the airport. I did get a wee bit hurt at an accident in America, and I came back happy as Larry because it was so dosed up on American painkillers. Nothing was a problem. Got off the plane, and she was there to pick me up, and the crutches, and out and into the car, and ringing home, oh yeah, I'm grand, not a bother. And then my mother was on the phone, when are you going to talk to him? When's he
When he
when's
wakes up.
by the time you give up that crack? And Lisa, she knows well. She was very much no, it's
No,
not.
this is his thing. Yeah.
And she's been great to me. She's been very tolerant, because there's been so many weekends away. She comes to the odd one, but there's been so many weekends away that I've missed other things.
Yeah.
But she's been behind me 100%. She knows that's what I want to do, and that's just there's nothing else in life. There's no other hobby. Like, I'm a bit of an out Liverpool fan. Bit of watching of that, which has been good the last couple of years. It's been really good. I've been a Liverpool fan since I was a kid, and happily always stuck with that. And I get, my interest in soccer is Liverpool only. I have no knowledge or interest in anything else. It's just whatever Liverpool are doing and whatever Man United are doing. And the worse they are, the more enjoyment I get out of that, because I would be known for being quite brutal at winding people about stuff. So yeah, there's Man United fans out there that know oh man, I give it to them both barrels.
Yes.
And then blue tractors. I like blue
Yes.
tractors. I don't have one. I'm not quite Emma Cherry
Sure
spec.
yet.
Someday I might get one, but at the minute it's just on models on a shelf because there wouldn't be. If I had a tractor, I'd probably I'd miss something at a rally. So
But like Emma's only started the tractor since he retired, so whenever you retire, you might
this is
start
true.
the
Yeah,
tractors.
this is true. This is true. Maybe he'll let me into a shed someday, and I can sit up in the seat and pretend, just like just like I did probably the first time I sat in a rally. I'm sure the first time I sat into a rally car, I probably got into the co-driver seat and looked around and like that. Yeah, what this would be like. I do remember actually a motor show in Monaghan. Can't remember the year. Kevin Barrett had R7 WRC again. You see, I can remember the number. A car which I subsequently, I'm right in saying I think I sat in that car. I did sit in that car.
With Kieran Kane, then would it be?
No, Kevin, no, with Dara Raftery. He was in that car for sure.
Yeah, definitely white. Yeah.
I'm thinking I'm connecting the right two cars. But anyway, at this motor show, it was in the Hillgrove in Monaghan, and I think it was like it had a road safety aspect to it or something. Anyway, I remember being at it, but my brother was with me that day. Maybe we were coming or going to a rally or something. I don't know what it was. But anyway, sat in Kevin Barrett's car. She was left-hand drive at the time, and lost my phone. I had one of these little cool Motorola flip phones at the time. Because I'm into my gadgets, and it never would have been just a plain phone even then. And it was, they were little small, palm your hand job, and I lost it in the car. But I managed to get back in touch with Kevin Barrett, who had my phone. He probably doesn't remember that, but the phone had gone down in the seat, and I got my phone back off Kevin. I don't remember how I got it back off him, but I remember being in touch with him. I think it was possibly to Declan Tumulty, who was co-driving for him at the time. Somebody got me my phone back. But yeah, that was from just sitting in that.
Probably not a coincidence you dropped your phone in a rally car.
No, I don't know how to do any rallies at that time, but I don't think Kevin would take that as a job interview. I lost my phone in his car. But it did funny, years later I managed to do a rally with Paul Barrett and really enjoyed that, good driver, good, like I keep saying about people, good family, good people.
What they've put anti-Irish rallying over the years, sure, we can't even begin to, you couldn't put value on it, could you?
No, you couldn't. Like, if you look back, how many years ago was Kevin in the G3?
Yeah.
Triton Showers has been on stuff for so long, and then the other things he's done, not just the obvious things of sponsoring national and sponsoring different rallies, but like the time he was heavily involved in Chris Meek the year Chris won the circuit when he was in the blue car.
Marshall's Day, they were big behind the Marshall's Day at the start.
That's yeah. When I was working in Dublin, I got slightly involved in that. There was Kevin, there was Declan Tumulty, there was Sean Walsh, and who else? There was a number of people then involved in it. And I would have gone and given a dig out in the day, and that they used to meet in Maynooth, and it was handy enough for me. I was working in Crumlin in Dublin, and I think I was living in Leixlip at the time. So that was, it was handy. It was something good to go to meetings anyway. You'd sit, you'd chat about rallying, and it was good. So it was always, you knew what was going on. It was good.
Yeah, I think we'll finish up now, I suppose. But I was said earlier about the young fella. Now look where he is now. Like, is it still pinch yourself every now and again, thinking, I'm doing this year, and I'm still as happy now as I was the first day I ever sat in the car?
Yeah, it definitely is. I regard myself as very fortunate to be doing what I'm doing. I enjoy. I do take it seriously. I try to do my best and don't want to mess up, and kind of managing to keep it that way. So yeah, it is. I like, at the weekend, I was sitting in Sligo with Jason Dixon, and we took a good jump on in pace at the weekend. We're improving every time we sit into the car. He's a great driver and good. You're with good people that all his family, his brothers and his parents, Ashley and Ruth, and the brothers Stephen and Ian and Jordan are so much behind the whole project that we were all there together as just one good unit, and it was it's enjoyable at that. Like I keep coming back to it. Like you're with good people and doing good things, and it was real satisfying. You know, we're tipping out over Ladies Bray there, flat out over crests, and reading away, and feeling good that we're doing well and we're getting better, we're improving, we're there doing what we want to do, and yeah, that's very satisfying, and I like it. And what's been good to me as well is the traveling that I've done. You know, most of my traveling has been I've gone west. I've headed, you know, I've done rallies in America and a little bit in South America. You know, I did a season in Canada, and I've been to places and met people that you absolutely wouldn't meet otherwise because of it. You know, places you would never be, like Rangeley, Colorado. Why would you ever be there?
Yeah.
It wouldn't be on the beaten track. You know, Newry in Maine. You know, who knew there was a Newry outside of South Armagh? So yeah, that's been really good. And then we've had holidays in the US where we've gone and tied in something on the back of a rally and had great times and different things. Iceland is another place, a country I couldn't recommend enough for people to go and visit. Um, Rallying took me to Iceland initially through a man who's been such a friend to us, Danny Sigurdarsson, and his
It's
sister
okay.
Asta. Yeah, so we've been to Iceland many times outside of rallying, and going back again there in a couple of weeks, and it'll be we'll spend some time with Danny over there, and that's all when I met him doing the Evo Challenge in 2008, 2009, and then done some rallies with him, and it's led us so many places. It took us. I'm thinking of other places. We went to Belgium because of rallying. There's been so many of those trips that you end up there because of you know, there was a rallying connection that brought you there, or actually competing on a rally, and it's a great way of traveling and seeing stuff and seeing a different perspective, and it gives you a different perspective and a different skill and stuff. Like I said before, like I'm not one for adding up. Even at the weekend, I got a touch from Andy about it. I just looked at I gave him the time from the previous stage. You know, I wasn't looking, but he asked me to add up. But it's definitely taught me skills of sense of direction and not panicking about some stuff. You know, when you're traveling or whatever, you gives you the, well, sure, we'll get there when we get. You know, you'll figure your way
It'll
around
work.
stuff. Because,
We'll make it work. Yeah.
yeah, you have to think on the fly at a rally. It's good for that. Yeah, it is. It's yeah, it teaches us all something, but it's been a great part of life, and I hope it'll continue. Sure, you know, it even just leads us to enjoyable chats. Like, sure, what else would we? What are we? Monday night here, sitting chatting about it, and it's great. It's enjoyable. I wouldn't be sitting here chatting to you about horse racing or.
No.
And when I go to bed tonight, the bedtime reading, I'm in the middle of reading. Books is a big thing for me. I've always been a book person, and I have a massive collection of books. Even since here in the house in Oma, there's so many books have been bought and are on the shelf, and I've so many at home. Like Senna books is a big thing. I'm a Senna fan, and you can see like I'm wearing a Senna jersey. This is a Senna soccer jersey. I can remember the one that I've Senna memorabilia everywhere, but I'm reading at the minute the book of when Ari Vatanen won the world championship, Dave Sutton's team.
Oh yeah, yeah.
His autobiography, and it was one of those ones that I had to do a bit of digging. I just found it on eBay one day.
Yes.
So I'm running around getting those books. Unfortunately, I won't be fit to get him to sign it. I'd read Padden's book before, which is another book. As you know, we had the connection with him through CNM a couple of weeks ago, and there's a fellow I forgot that I managed to sit in with the guy, and that was really enjoyable because I don't think he knew. I was just there helping out at the test. I was there from the CNM side of things, and mechanic Kevin Duffin, long boy. Not to divert into a long story, but long boy won a rally for me one day with his switched onness. He was feeding me times of a rally when we were running a rally in reverse seeding when I did a rally with Matthew Cathcart. Matthew Cathcart has the claim to fame of winning his first ever rally.
The Sunset, yeah.
Stage rally, the Sunset, yeah, and that was reverse seeding that year. So we We didn't know we were seated, although we were in a four-wheel drive car, we were seated towards the back, and Longboy was giving me times, and I knew where we were in the rally and was there not telling Matthew. Knew we were leading the rally. Right, okay, don't tell him. Going into the last stage, knowing we needed to push to keep it, and saying to him, "Yeah, I think we're doing all right. That's all right. We're third in Group N. Like we might just have a bit of a tip on to this one, go a little bit more just to see can we." He's like, "Oh, Group N, we could be third in Group N. We might be second, you know." I did not say anything because I've been texting Richard, his brother, who was there with us. We're leading this flipping rally, you know. And but that was all because Longboy had told me that. But I digress. We're back to the test, and he's there. You know, I was putting the camera in the car, and Hayden was asking me, "Oh, he was, you know, wondering who's this guy, you know, putting the camera in the car and what's going on here." I said, "Oh no, don't worry, it's a proper one. It's one I use myself rally, and no, you're dead on." And sort of I wanted to say I know what I'm at, but
I didn't want to be too presumptuous yet.
Longboy was there. You don't know this boy. You don't know this This lad does loads of rallies. He's probably done some of the rallies you were at. And funny, there is a picture that Roy Dempster took of me at a control in Rally GB in 19. And there was an issue, something, I can't remember what. There was something, I was talking to the timekeeper, and Padden was leaving at the same time. It was to go to the ceremonial start. Padden was leaving. He was in the M Sport Rally 2 car that day. And John Kennard and myself are both there. I've, you know, the headset on, but one ear off, the Pirelli hat on, and John Kenner's in. The two of us are down with our time cards, speaking to the timekeeper. And so I had done a rally that he had done.
Yes.
But anyway, we jumped into the car, and Dave Moynihan gave me his notes. He said, "Oh, it was again like the Nesbitt story." Hayden opened the door and said, "Come on, I'll take you for a run." So, you know, I jumped in and read the notes and read away. And there was just one bit of David's writing I just couldn't catch. It didn't fall to my eye, and I called it something something. And we had a good laugh about it. Padden had a good laugh. He goes, "Oh, you've done a bit of this before," and I was like, "Oh yeah, I've done one or two. All right, yeah." But that was you know, they're also the thing I noticed about him that day, how efficient he was in the brake, and it felt like some of the times it would have been around the track with a racing driver.
Right.
Tarmac, his instant bang brake pressure, consistent off. It's just it was good. You see it's funny.
See why he has where he was.
Yeah, I just picked that up like straight away. It was just something I noticed that it felt different to how other people I'd been with on tarmac was. That was just his style. So yeah, that was good. But it was back to, you know, all those years later, we're still knocking on the same people. You know, Kevin was there along Boy and Hayes. The way that, you know, the bit of crack that we could have about things, and that's like the Greg Shinner story. I would say to him every time, you know, "You're the boy that won the rally for me that day," because it was down to that we didn't know where we were. The way Stephen was done, we didn't know where we were, and because of him being ahead of, you know, texting me back the times of what was in front, we knew how to manage it. And that was a real special one because Matthew, no more than his brother, a fantastic talent behind the wheel, just
natural.
felt like there was nothing he couldn't do. And those guys were just very busy at the time with business, so they didn't really devote they didn't, you know, do every rally in the country, but if they did, they would have had even more success than the modest success they did have. They definitely, any rally we went, they didn't disgrace themselves. You know, they were very good. He went on then to an R2 car and did great things in an R2 car at a time just before John Armstrong and these other guys. I've been for Mana drivers, I've been very, very lucky. I've done a rally with Ali Fisher, did, you know, a handful of rallies with John in his early days, and that was brilliant. Both the Cathcarts, Timmy Cathcart, another guy who sadly is no longer with us. I'm trying to think who else I sat
Jennings,
with.
you were involved with him too.
Jennings, that's right. Yeah, Jennings, from Mana Superstar. I did the circuit with Jennings, and that was one that I'd say we're safe enough to tell the story about that one. Away from the book, his book, not mine. Like, I remember. But
you were a bit part player.
Let's say we had a fuel issue, we had a fuel starvation issue, and we made it. I would have been involved at different times in tests in Cooley when there was closed roads up there, and my secret was I was fit to ring the Garda station up there. Got friendly with the local Garda, the sergeant that was up there, and said, "Well, when's the next road closing order?" And I was at every test up there and got some seats and cars. I remember being there a day when there was. I would have then got involved and been a radio operator of those tests, but there was a French boy there in this old Peugeot, this old Citroen that was like one of these 1600. They're no good, those yokes, are they? And it was the DS3 at the time. the S3s, and this French lad that was quite quiet and a bit sulky was back in Ogier. If only I'd have known, I might have. Yeah, here, will you bring me for a spin, and then I could have set up a run with Ogier. But he was just very quiet, and he was probably wondering why he was on the side of a wet hill and just outside Dundalk.
Didn't say up for this.
Yeah, and it was the car was obviously in its early days, so it was probably a bit of a pig of a thing. They were doing a lot of work to it, but yeah, that was cool. But with Gary, we came into service. Initially, we needed all hands on deck to fix it. We had Peter Jennings there as the head mechanic, and we got it sorted, but we may not have got it sorted within the allotted service time. And what may have happened was, because the time card reflected the time we left service, definitely my time card was signed at the correct time, and we left service. But it's possible, it's not beyond the bounds of possibility, that how the rally car, because Carnaban Industrial Estate has many ways in and many ways out. It was even actually more than before the new road was built there. So the car definitely appeared at the next control. And the marshal was there saying, "Where were you? We were wondering. We were worried. Where were you? You're late." And I said, "Oh, I know I'm late. Sure. Just got a bit lost here coming up the road. We're a bit late, but sure, we're still not OTL." And we continued on in the rally, and I'll leave the rest of the story there. We didn't finish it. We didn't appear in the results anymore, but any signature I had on the time card was definitely correct. I was at the control, and time card was at the control.
Yeah, the car may or not be.
Well, no, I don't know.
Yeah, you claim the Fifth Amendment on that one.
Yeah, we'll claim the Fifth Amendment on that one. But that one was, that was good. I did a few more rallies with Gary then the following season, and what a man! See, every driver's different, and I take something different from all of those. But Gary, the thing I took from him, I've never been with someone that can throw a car into a square junction, and this is in a Group N Evo, and with such ferocity, and just make the car bite and get it out of the corner. He was brilliant at that. He had something that other people, I felt that I sat with, didn't have. That's just one thing that stands out for me, where he was, and everything was "Hey sausage" or "Hey George," And I haven't picked that up for a while. It was I'll never "Hey George." It's like Jennings. So we were returning a hire car one time in I think it was in Florida. I just out of habit, when the guy came over to get the keys off me, I was like, "Oh, well, George." Sorry, you called my name? I was like, yeah. That would just be like the Jennings thing. Everyone was George, no matter what your name was, "Well, George," or "Well, Sausage." Yeah, it was, and just, so many stories, Kevin. We'd be here all night.
Yes, but what can we say, Martin? 600, and that story is not even probably a quarter of the way through. So we'll maybe talk whenever you get to the 1,000.
You booked me in for the 700. I reckon at an average of we'll try and aim for an average of 25 rallies a year. Yeah. And that'll be 4 years from now.
2029 then.
I'll try and beat it, and under 4 if I can. I know that records. You talk about people like, I'm sure Mickey Joe, if you were to sit down and get the right records, has done as many, if not more. There's 5 people in front of me, one of whom is Patrick Walsh. Yes. I wish he'd stay home a few weekends. I did get in front of him during COVID, but I had an unfair advantage. I was in the US and rallies were still running, so I nipped ahead of him. But then he came and started doing like 2 and 3 rallies in one weekend. He's going to Martinique next weekend to do a rally, and I have a rally to do at home next weekend. So he's going to get another one in front of me next weekend. I say that to him when I meet him in rallies. "What are you doing here? You're not staying at home."
So when do you need anybody for Emma Kelly next week?
But yeah, if there's anyone for Emma Kelly, just so I can be. And then don't ring Patrick Walsh for a reference. He won't take me. He'll be trying to exclude me, from getting the numbers up. But Patrick has said to me, that he's got a few missing on his EWRC profile, but I think he's bluffing. I think it's just them out road rallies that they have in Wales where they don't count.
There's only 12 of them or something starting.
But no, I'm sure he has a few missing, and there's people. Then I think the person that's leading. I know certainly the person that was leading was a lady in Italy. I think she's dropped a second, and there's a gentleman in Belgium that's now leading. Right. By EWRC stats, so that's 2 in front. I know I was particularly chuffed when I jumped past Stefan Prevost because he was a bit of a hero of mine.
Yeah.
So I jumped past Stefan Prevo. I remember that day. He's probably, I think he's like 7 or 8. He's still flat out competing. He's
Yes.
doing a lot. Nicola Arena, and gentleman in Italy, who's a lovely guy. He's thereabouts. I can't remember if he's in front or behind me. Possibly in front of me. I don't know.
23
I know I saw at one point the names a guy in EWRC sent it to me a couple of years ago, maybe 2 years ago, of the totals and the people, and he sent me also the breakdown of the Irish numbers, and the high numbers there would be James O'Brien, Rory Kennedy. I was on paper there, at least definitely in front. Probably, I think a strong amount. Anthony Nestor, Niall Burns would be up and coming on that list as well. I'm trying to think who else. Probably Dino Sullivan would be another one that's high up on that list. And there's other lads coming that I have a head start on them, but I don't plan on quitting anytime soon. Like, look at Mickey Joe. He's up in the numbers himself. And he's definitely he's past his retirement age and showing no sign of
signs of it. Yep.
Yeah, so he'll add a few more to his numbers yet. But if I could be doing what he's doing, I'd be very, very happy.
So thanks very much there to Martin. What a story, Conor.
Oh, look, absolutely fabulous. And it's one of those things, you think Martin's been around forever, but he actually hasn't, either.
No, it's only really 25 years. Well, just over 25 years. But what a fascinating story. And lovely to hear all these kind words about all the other co-drivers there as well.
Well, that's it. And, and we've said before, there is a rally community and a rally spirit, and you could really see and hear it with Martin. It was very evident, especially with his, I suppose, looking longingly at MJ's career.
That's for sure. So, again, thanks to Martin, and that's the latest episode of Krunching Gears. Please like, share, rate, subscribe. And until the next time, take care, speak soon, and bye.
It's the proudest day and the proudest time in the seat of a rally car, because that day and that hour and those minutes, I got the bit between my teeth. I really stood up and was counted and said, this is not getting away. I remember when we pulled on our helmets and Donald says to me, what are we doing? I said, we're going for gold, Barrett. That's all was said. I can still picture that run. That was just the best run ever.